Don't forget to check out Studio Will for the project files of this video if you guys don't want to do this yourself. There is Photoshop and Illustrator files, but more on that later. What's up guys, it's Wilson, also known as Design by Will, and in today's video we're going to be learning how to make a tech pack for your streetwear brand. So first thing you guys want to do is just set up a new document on Illustrator or Photoshop. You can do this in both ways. I'm just going to be doing it Illustrator because that is an industry standard. And you're going to want to grab images of your mock-up or whatever thing that you're going to be printing on. So I recommend you go to Alibaba and order a sample from your manufacturer, or even just look at images on Google of the manufacturer you want to get, just so you can get a better understanding of where you're going to place these items on the actual garment. So this is a size XL hoodie that I ordered from my manufacturer, and I've just taken photos from my iPhone and just imported them into my Mac via AirDrop. Now the first thing you want to do is basically just center that into your artboard that you have, and then just go down to your layers tab and find the layer that has obviously the image you want to edit, and make sure you're on properties. And you see the opacity, just lower that down until you can see it, but so it's not faint, just so it's easier for you when you're drawing the lines, so you can distinguish which layer you're drawing your lines on. After you've done that, I would recommend just locking the layer so you can draw on top without any interference. And just grab your pen tool. Now we're going to set the pen tool to 1, and we're basically just going to be drawing half the hoodie. Now this is going to all make sense once we start the actual process of drawing, but this is also why I've done this in Illustrator rather than Photoshop. If you're doing this in Photoshop, I recommend just making a symmetry line in the middle of the hoodie and just drawing one side of the hoodie. Either way, it's the same thing. I just find it easier to do this in Illustrator and then bring it into Photoshop later anyway. So once that's ready, you're just going to be tracing around the hoodie itself. Now I'm going to walk you through how I did it on this one, and then for the rest of the sides it's going to be the exact same, so I'm just going to fast forward through the rest of it. So the first thing on the main outline, you just want it to be thick, so you want to keep it at that 1. Then once you finish your line, obviously go to the direct selection tool or the selection tool, so you can click away from that line, either way, whichever way it's easier for you, so you can make another line. You don't want to keep it around on the same line, and I'll explain on why to do that later. So basically we're just going in with the pen tool like I said before and just tracing the actual hoodie. You don't have to make this perfect, and you can see me keep zooming in and out, just so you can get a basic understanding of the hoodie and the actual fit in itself. Now the main key thing for this is we're not doing cut and sew, so this doesn't have to be perfect, and we also got a size chart from our manufacturer. So initially we're not really making anything like a custom cut or sew hoodie. So once you're doing those type of things, this step gets way more important, and things like even the stitching and what else can I say? The stitching and panels and everything like pockets, that's going to be extremely crucial that you draw that extremely right. But just because we're printing on this garment and it's mostly already made, we're not editing the actual garment in itself. We're just making sort of a mock-up for the manufacturer to follow with their instructions or their template. Now for the cuffs and stuff like that, we're just going to set this to 0.5 just to distinguish where the cut is for the actual main body of the hoodie compared to all the little cuts of the arms and the hems for the bottom of the hoodie in itself. Now we're going to be doing this also on the inside seams of the hoodie or the stitching of the hoodie in itself. So just using a 0.5 stroked width. Make sure you don't connect it because this will happen in Illustrator, and that was the main reason why I said in the first place, don't connect the lines or and draw them individually for each individual part because you have more control. So once that's done, we're just going to grab our selection tool, and we're just going to go in and do the same thing for the bottom of the hoodie. So just using 0.5 drawing the hem of the hoodie, placing it in, nothing too crazy. And if you find this part boring, just skip through it for a more exciting part. But I just wanted to show you guys along the process because people keep asking me that I'm going too fast. So I just wanted to slow down and show you everything step by step. So once you've done that, you just want to make it so it looks like the hoodie is on maximum threshold. So anything you would see on a threshold, you're drawing in. So any lines on the pockets, stuff like that, you just want to make sure you're drawing that all in. So for the actual hood of the design, we're going to be drawing the full hoodie instead of half the hoodie, just to make it look more realistic. You're more than welcome to just draw half the hoodie if you want. That's 100% fine. But I just wanted to have like the feel like I've drawn this by hand. So I'm just doing it that way. But you're more than welcome to not do it this way and just draw half and then copy it. So now that we got our design fully sketched out, we just want to click one of our lines that we've drawn in, and we're going to select dash line. So it's going to make it look like it's stitched in, or this is where the stitch is going to be. Now this is for everyone who's going to be doing cut and sew pieces. This is initially how you would replicate how you want your stitches to be. There's a lot of different ways of how to make stitches in Illustrator, and you can use brush formats and etc. But this way I just find it a lot easier, because brush formats, when you're using stitching in Illustrator, or dashed lines, whichever way you want to call it, it tends to make these weird boxes around it, especially when you're using a brush instead of just a dashed line. So I'm just doing it that way, and we're basically going to be doing this for wherever like an inside stitch would be for the hoodie. Like I said before, if you're doing a cut and sew piece, I strongly recommend that you know where all the stitching will be. For a hoodie like this, you don't really need to do it that much. We're not doing really cut and sew. We're going to legitimately send this to the manufacturer as is and say, hey, I want my stuff printed like this. Now, once you're doing it with their size chart and their version of a hoodie, it gives them a better understanding of how big you want your print to be without actually measuring it. So for instance, if I tell them this is an XL hoodie that I've ordered, and these are the designs on size of the hoodie in terms of a tech pack, I just want this printed exactly like this. It's easier to communicate. Now, what people don't understand is there's two completely different versions of tech pack. Like there's multiple levels to a tech pack depending on what you're doing. So now that we've got our stitches in, whatever you want to call it, stitches or dashed lines, we're initially going to group together the hoodie body in itself, not the actual hood, because we drew the actual hood in its full. Now this part can be a little bit iffy because we have all these individual lines. You can't just go into the layers panel and make sure you select all the right lines, but I've just done it this way because I'm a crazy maniac. Now we're just going to go right click, transform, and reflect, vertical reflect, and just 90 degrees. Or sorry, 180 degrees, whichever way makes it completely opposite of what the other way was. And once we have that, you don't want to play with the sizing or anything like I tried to do. You just want to make sure it lines up, and then you want to connect the lines for each of the drawings or dashed strokes that you made. The way I'm doing it is just clicking the ends of each point and then right clicking and then press join points. So that's how you do it. If you're doing it wrong, Illustrator will give you a warning saying these are not the ends of the points and they can't be connected. That's fine. Just make sure you have your direct selection tool on and clicking the ends of those lines, and then the ends of the other line holding shift, and then right click and press join. So once that's all sorted and done, we're just going to do one more step and go in and draw this little back piece in just to add more depth to the drawing itself. You don't have to do this at all, but I just wanted to do it just because, honestly, and just set it to 0.5. And now you have a complete garment illustration to present to your manufacturer. Like I said before, this does not have to be perfect unless you're doing cut and sew pieces. So if you want to edit anything, like this little shoulder piece was annoying me, so I went back and edited it. You can, but like I said, you don't have to. You just need it to be clear enough so the design could be understood to print for the manufacturer, and it doesn't have to be perfect. What's understood doesn't need to be said. So once that's all done, we're just going to drag our design off the main artboard, and then we're going to duplicate it by pressing Command C or Command V, or just dragging it out. Then we're going to go to Object and Expand. Now make sure it expands all the lines because we're going to make them join together. Now this is when we bring everything together just by clicking the expand path thing towards the properties. It's the one with the double filled square. That means everything is getting connected. Now once that's done, we can go in and initially just paint our panels. Now I'm selecting white so we can see where our panels are. Now this would be really cool if you were doing like one side green, one side blue, stuff like that. So this is where Illustrator comes in more handy than Photoshop. Doing this in Photoshop would initially take an extra step because you have to make an object and a path, and then you have to make clipping masks for that and the colors, etc. So Photoshop would just make this a little more confusing. We're just using the shape builder and selecting our color, and then just going in, and once we've highlighted the whole thing, and just initially clicking where we want those colors. Now once that's all done, you basically have the finished product done, and we're just going to be recreating this for the back and also the side panel. So I'm just gonna put that on fast forward. Like I said, you guys can slow that part down if you guys want to watch this whole thing again without me speaking. So yeah. So now we got all our garments done and complete. You basically just want to grab them and put them back onto the artboard. Now, if you guys are confused as how I got here, all I did was legitimately drag out, expanded, and colored in options and put them on the artboard. And I got also the manufacturer size chart. Now, this is the most important. This is one of the most important parts of the actual spec sheet in itself. Initially, if you are doing cut and sew, you would do this size chart yourself in Illustrator or something like that. But since we're not doing cut and sew, that doesn't really matter to us. We can just get the one that they supplied to us and put it directly onto the spreadsheet or the manufacturer sheet. Kindly, I already have my designs ready for this project. And I'm planning on releasing a friends and family design. So this is basically what that's going to be. So I've made this custom graphic. It's a sex symbol at the back, something that just referenced like chrome hearts or something like that. That was the main reference for this piece. And it just works well together, especially with all the gambling stuff like that. So we're just playing on those type of themes, etc., etc. Now, you can be really accurate and make sure these are all going in the right places. And I have made a project file for this whole thing for my Patreons at Studio Will, and you will get a Photoshop or an Illustrator file for this whole project, so you can make your own tech pack, as well as the manufacturer that I'm going to be going with, so you guys don't have to think about anything. Legitimately just send it to the same manufacturer with your designs on it, and you should be good to go. Now, I'm just going ahead and placing my designs wherever, and as you can see, I'm not really focusing on the layers. Now, once you're doing this for yourself, you do want to clean up these layers. So you do want to make sure that your hoodie, garment, and colors for each designs are all together roughly in the same area. I'm just playing around with this placement of this heart. Ended up putting it here, but I ended up not putting it in the final. And it just looks really well once you put everything together. Now, this is obviously a Y2K logo at the front. This is going to be a subdivision of mine called Revision Studios, because as designers, you know you love revisions. So that was a name inspiration for this. And all in, I'm just going ahead and just making sure everything looks good. I'm just going to pick a simple color like blue or something like that. If you are doing stitch, make sure you have Pantone colors on, but you don't really need it nowadays because a lot of manufacturers have these files and they can go in and put those Pantones in if they need to without having to bother you or the designer. But sometimes they are stuck in their old ways and want those colors already there for them in case they want to do stuff without having any confusion. And like I said before, you can put as much detail as you want in these projects. You don't have to put even as much detail as this. You could honestly just send over a mock-up and they could print it. Like, that's how good technology has become, because they can see like a mock-up and just compare it to what garments they have in and just put it together and print. That's legitimately how they do it, especially with DTG printing. So that's digital printing. Screen printing does get a little bit more tricky, so you do have to make sure you have these layers, etc., etc. But yeah, once I have my designs roughly where I want them, I've just grabbed the color specs for this project, and these are the colors that they have in terms of options for the garment. And I'm just going to go in and select all the panels that we've made. This is why panels are amazing. However, the one that I've made for you guys in the Patreon, it's legitimately all you have to do is just click one layer and then select the color that you want. And I've also exported all the colors into blocks, or if you have the Photoshop, into the colors a folder, so you guys don't have to do this long manual task, just for your convenience. But if you're doing this step by step and following me, this is how you're going to do it. Make sure you select all the panels that you want to change color and just select the color that you want. Now, these colors are coming out weirdly on Illustrator because I have CMYK on, and it's selecting mainly the most vibrant tones just to get a better representation or an accurate look of the actual colors in itself. So I'm gonna go in and just edit the colors in myself. I recommend you not doing this if you are printing off a garment and your manufacturer has colors for you and those are what they have in stock, and they might charge you extra if you want to do custom colors. So just get the colors that they have that best suits the mock-up that you guys want to produce and just select it. I am bringing these values down a little bit just so it would represent more of how I would honestly see this compared to when I got my my samples in and the colors that they sent me on Alibaba. They were more washed out, which makes sense because when you're doing woven stuff, it's not really vibrant, and it's a better representation of what the actual material is. And the material on top of the hoodie that I got a sample of is very like soft. It's like suede. So yeah, I just wanted to reproduce that in this Illustrator file. Like I said before, you don't have to do this, and you can legitimately put as much detail as you want. Now, I didn't put anything on the sides of the hoodie in terms of design, so I'm not going to be using that those panels that we made for the side. But it is good to have in case you want to put something on the side of a hoodie or something like that. So once you got everything done, you're just going to want to make a new layer in Photoshop or Illustrator, and this is where you're going to put all your text and your call outs for information in terms of what you want. So I'm just going to make a just a line pointing outwards. Just keep the color black or red for now, whichever color stands out the most. And this is where we're going to write I want this puff print, and this is going to be 100% cotton in terms of the garment. I want this part stitched, and you can take this further by numbering stuff, especially if you're doing it in Illustrator and putting it together as like a folder for a custom garment. You're going to be wanting to do all that in more detail, but since we're doing print onto garment and we're not doing anything cut and sew, this will help us get a better understanding of what we want to do in terms of our project. So I'm just in Illustrator making out call out points for all the main things that we're going to talk about. Anything else doesn't have to be called out because all we're doing is printing. So for this main front, I want a puff print, so we're just going to make puff print call out, and that's basically all you're going to be doing for the rest of it. So the back, I want a puff print too. So if you want a DTG or screen print on the back, you can say I want screen print or embroidery, whichever you want. Just communicate that as clearly as possible. And once you're communicating with your manufacturer on Alibaba, WeChat, wherever you're communicating with, it's just going to be easier for them to visually see what you have going on and what you're texting, so everything matches. So once that's done, you can move over to making sort of custom tags. If you are making custom tags, just keep in mind custom tags do cost more money. They do cost a lot of money, especially when you're printing low quantity. If you're printing like 30 to 60 garments, it's really expensive to make custom tags, but I do offer it to my clients who ask for it, and it's not a big hassle at all because all I'm doing is legitimately getting either the logo that I made or part of the design, putting it on the custom tag, and then having some care instructions. So this is basically an example of a manufacturer sheet that I did for a client at Mazza. Shout out to them boys, because they're very helpful and they're a very good communicator in terms of communication. And these are the tags that we made. So I really like this tag format, and I've printed it for a client before, so I'm always keeping this tag format. Unless they want a different design for the tags, I can definitely do that. But in terms of what I offer within the design realm of the project, without having to go in and pay extra with me, I can just offer to them the template that I have in terms of tags, and it's a very easy template to follow. Now this is also in the garment that I'm going to be giving to you guys on Patreon, so this is all going to be in the project file. Like I said before, all you have to do is just grab the logo and just legitimately put it onto the template and then group it once that's all done. and make sure it's consistent throughout the rest of the design. So this is a bifold tag, that's what they call them, and it basically just folds on itself back to front. It's the most common tag you see, and it's probably one of the cheapest ones you can do, other than just direct print onto garment tags like the ones that you see is just screen printed on the insides of hoodie, which is what I find most comfortable. And I am printing this and I am taking into fact all the pricing, etc, etc. So I won't be making custom tags once I do the final project. So this is just to give you guys a representation of what you would see in terms of tags and how to do them. Now you guys can just pause, screenshot, and copy these. In terms of sizing, I'm pretty sure it's either 4.5 centimeters by 5 centimeters, something like that, something rectangular. Or like I said, again, you guys can just pause it and copy it. Don't mind, it is what it is, and it's the most generic sizing in terms of tags. I've just decided to switch the tag from the logo of the project to Studio Will, my branding for the studio that I'm making, or in the realm of making, and I'm bringing you guys a part of. So it just makes sense and it just looks a little bit better, and I really like my studio logo. So if I were to print onto garments and make custom tags, this is how I would do it. Now these are the care tags. Obviously you can copy or basically just grab them from Google initially and just image trace them, or in Photoshop, what's it called, threshold, and then place them onto the tag. Most of the time manufacturers do already have custom care labels or labels tags printed onto the hoodie in itself, so you really don't have to do custom tags. You just have to have some sort of branding, whether that's a hangout tag or something like that, just so they can get communication if you guys do want tags on your hoodies or not, or shirts, whatever you want to call them. So once that's all done and complete, you basically have your tech pack ready. Now I'm just doing additional extra stuff, so I'm gonna have a call out for what the design is, and this has to mimic what your folders are named. So if this is design 1 and you call out and say this is design 1 on your folder, you have to name it design 1, or the folder itself design 1, and inside have like back design 1, something like that, just so it's easier. Like I said, you can put as much information as you want in the text pack, but the more information the better. So once that's all finished, you can view it. I just have it in preview mode, so that's Command Y to get it into this like black and white preview mode. You're just gonna want to export this as a PDF. So most manufacturer will most likely want this as a PDF. You can send it as a Photoshop file or something like that, but PDFs just seem more formal. So the way you do that is basically you just want to go Command Save As, and put in the right file, and make sure you have Adobe PDF selected, and then press OK. Now this is what the final result is going to look like for your tech pack. So yep, these are hoodies. These are tags. Like I said, just copy these settings for 4.5. See how it looks. Make sure it's all good. Design 1, design 2. And that's it, because I removed the little embroidery or stitch patch I was going to put on one of the sleeves. And yeah, that's it. That's how you guys make a tech pack. Like I said before, if you guys want the project files for this, just make sure you click the link in the bio at Studio Will Patreon, and you have an Illustrator and a Photoshop file for both of these, especially the sides, front, and the back. I'll see you guys when I see you. Take care. Peace.